Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a really critical area. What makes teachers thrive and, well, how school leadership can foster genuinely healthy and effective environments.
Yeah,
You, our listener, pointed us towards some, fascinating sources, and our mission today is really to extract the core insights, those aha moments around teacher well-being and positive school development.
exactly. And we've got quite a bit to work with. There's an article from Necker Verlag featuring insights from a principal, Carsten Bangert,
Mm-hmm.
and it draws on some pretty robust findings like the Potsdam Teacher Study, plus ideas from Todd Whitaker and Simon Sinek.
Okay.
We'll also briefly touch on a project called Learn, Rise zu Innovative in Schulen. But yeah, the main issue is, well, it's clear and pretty concerning. Many teachers are under significant strain.
Right.
And alarmingly few report feeling genuinely, well.
That's the thing that jumps out immediately, isn't it? That figure from the article, only 17% of teachers considered healthy. Just, wow, let that sink in for a moment. And, when you think about the current teacher shortages, the idea of just lessening their load, it becomes this huge challenge,
It really does.
which leads straight to those crucial questions the article raises. How can educators actually find joy and meaning in what is, let's face it, a really demanding job?
Mhm.
And what's the role of school leadership in creating places that are truly supportive, healthy workplaces?
And how do you use the group, the community, for positive growth?
Exactly. Big questions.
Yeah, these are the key things we're tackling. So the first framework the article introduces to help us understand this landscape is the Potsdam Teacher Study by Uwe Scharschmidt and Andreas W. Fischer.
Okay.
They use this detailed procedure, AVEM it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a tool to sort of map stress levels and coping strategies across different parts of professional life.
Right.
And they applied it specifically to teachers, identifying four distinct patterns or, well, teacher types.
Okay, 4 types. Let's unpack those. What's the first one?
First is type S. That stands for Schonung und Schutz, which is like protection and preservation.
Protection and preservation. Okay.
So these teachers, they show lower levels of engagement, but interestingly report relatively stable resilience and well-being.
Lower engagement, but stable.
Yeah, but, and this is important, that lower engagement, it can sometimes be a sign of withdrawal, a way to cope when things aren't great.
Right, like pulling back to protect yourself. Makes sense. Okay, what's next?
Then you have type A for anstrenging effort.
Effort. Okay, I can guess where this might be going.
Yeah, these are folks with really high dedication, super committed, but they often struggle with their resilience and their overall well-being.
So high effort, lower resilience.
Exactly. They find it hard to switch off to recover. Sometimes they hit what's called a gratification crisis.
Gratification crisis.
Yeah, like they're putting in so much effort, just pouring themselves into it, but they don't feel adequately rewarded or recognized.
Oh, okay, I see.
And that puts them at risk, a real risk, of moving into the next type. And what's key here is these are often your most dedicated people.
Right, the ones you think are doing great.
Exactly, the ones you rely on. So ignoring that risk of burnout isn't just, a human cost. It's a massive loss for the school.
That really highlights the need for leadership to be proactive, doesn't it? Like with workload and recognition.
Absolutely. Which brings us, unfortunately, to type BB for burnout.
Oh, burnout.
Burnout.
Yeah.
Here you see reduced engagement. Yeah, but it's coupled with significant limits in their ability to bounce back, to maintain well-being.
So they're disengaged and struggling.
Resignation, chronic exhaustion.
Yeah.
Those are the key signs. And the study found, get this, about 31% of teachers tend towards this state.
31%? Wow, that's nearly a third. That's genuinely worrying.
It really is. It's a huge number. And then finally, there's type GG for gesund, healthy.
Healthy. Okay, the 17%ers.
That's them. These are the teachers who manage to be highly engaged, but not, excessively so. And they also have strong resilience and good overall well-being.
So engaged but balanced.
Right. But yeah, like you said, only about 17%. And the study also noted that another 29% fall into that type A category.
The high effort at-risk group.
Exactly. So between type A and type B, you're looking at a really significant portion of the workforce who are struggling or at high risk.
That paints a stark picture. And, something else that struck me from the article was the observation about German teachers specifically. Often incredibly dedicated, right? But maybe struggling with perfectionism.
Yeah.
And the complexities of communication with students, with parents.
Yeah, and all those extra tasks, things they weren't really trained for.
It just sounds like pressure from all sides.
It really does. And the article quite rightly, I think, emphasizes how valuable self-reflection is for teachers.
Yeah.
Maybe using, structured assessments to figure out your dominant type, where you might need to develop.
Understanding your own patterns.
Exactly. And it also suggests that getting professional support, like coaching or even seeing a psychologist, shouldn't be seen as a last resort. It should be, well, a proactive step.
A tool for growth, not just crisis management.
Precisely. Though the article doesn't name specific tests, the core message is about gaining that self-awareness. How do you respond to stress? What are your engagement levels like?
Okay. So that's the Potsdam model, the 4 types. Now, the article layers another model on top of this, doesn't it? Something about ABC teachers.
It does, yeah. It draws a parallel, actually, to how teachers sometimes categorize students, ABC learners, based on engagement and performance.
Right, I've heard that kind of thing.
Well, an American educator, Todd Whitaker, he adapted this, apparently referencing a Dr. Al Burr from back in '93, and he proposed thinking about teachers in a similar way. Superstars, backbones, and mediocres.
Superstars, backbones, and mediocres.
Okay. Now, the article acknowledges straight up that this kind of labeling can feel a bit provocative.
Yeah, I can see that. It sounds potentially a bit, blunt, maybe reductive.
It can sound that way initially, for sure. But let's look at how they're defined in the teaching context.
Okay.
A teachers, the superstars, they're the ones consistently getting outstanding results. Really highly effective in the classroom.
Got it. Top performers.
Then the B teachers, the backbones. These are your solid, dedicated pros. They give their best every day, work hard, super reliable. They're the essential core, really.
The dependable majority, perhaps.
You could say that. And then there are C teachers.
Yeah.
And in the worst case scenario, these are individuals who, well, can unfortunately have negative impact on students, colleagues, the whole school climate.
Okay. That gives it more nuance than just the labels. So from a leadership perspective or, for school development, what's the point of this ABC idea?
Well, the main goal isn't just labeling. It's about continuous improvement for everyone.
Right.
It's about strengthening the A teachers, supporting the B teachers to grow, maybe towards A or at least becoming stronger Bs, and then finding ways to help C teachers move towards B, while also, importantly, mitigating any negative effects they might be having.
So it's a framework for targeted support and development, essentially.
Yeah. Now, the really interesting part is when the article overlays these 2 models, the Potsdam types, SABG, and Whitaker's categories, ABC.
Okay, how do they interact? What insights come out of that?
Well, one really crucial point is protecting your A teachers, your superstars. They shouldn't fall into Schmitt's type A, high effort, low resilience, or worse, type B, burnout.
Because their high performance could actually make them vulnerable.
Precisely. It's that old saying, you have to be on fire to burn out. Their dedication can lead to overexertion if not managed.
Makes sense. What about other connections?
There's also a risk for type S teachers, the lower engagement ones. If they face constant criticism and lack resilience, they could potentially slide towards type B burnout.
So low engagement isn't necessarily safe harbor either.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
And the article also notes that becoming a C teacher, that's usually not a sudden thing. It's often a slow, gradual process.
A decline over time. It really emphasizes that different teachers have different needs, different vulnerabilities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which leads to the question, regardless of where someone fits on these models, what are the basics? What do all teachers need for well-being?
Good question. What does the article say?
A supportive work environment. It comes up again and again. That's paramount.
And what does that look like, practically?
Well, things like a strong sense of social connection with colleagues, feeling like you belong, finding real meaning and purpose in the day-to-day work, having opportunities to grow, to learn professionally,
Okay.
and being trusted with tasks that are challenging but also meaningful, having some responsibility.
And leadership's role in all this?
Absolutely central. Leaders need to actively cultivate that positive, collaborative culture. Manage workload so it doesn't become crushing, promote a healthy social climate, and make sure staff feel empowered, like they can actually contribute to the school's development.
So it's about creating the conditions where people can thrive.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to the specific leadership strategies the article suggests.
Okay, let's get into those. The first one seems to be about focusing on the engaged teachers, right? The A teachers.
Yes, exactly. The article really emphasizes involving engaged teachers and also engaged students and parents in actually shaping the school's direction.
Right. Get the energy focus.
And it introduces this model called the 5 A's. It's based on analyzing what highly engaged educators really need and what motivates them.
The 5 A's. Okay, what are they?
So the 5 are Anerkennung, which is recognition, Aufgaben, tasks, Austausch, exchange or communication, Arbeitsumfeld, work environment, and Aufstiegsentwicklung, advancement or development.
Recognition, tasks, exchange, work environment, advancement. Okay. And how do these link back to, say, the Potsdam types? Like, how would the 5 A's help a type A teacher, the high-effort one who's at risk?
That's a great connection to make.
Mhm.
Well, for a type A teacher, feeling genuinely recognized for all that effort could be hugely validating, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Giving them challenging tasks with autonomy, Aufgaben, could channel their energy positively, maybe stop them getting bogged down in less meaningful stuff.
Right. Keep them engaged in the right way.
Regular open communication, Aufdash, helps them feel supported, prevents stress building up unnoticed. A manageable work environment, Arbeitsumfeld, with adequate resources is, well, just essential to stop burnout.
Of course.
And opportunities for growth, Aufstiegsentwicklung, give that long-term perspective, something beyond the immediate pressures.
So let's quickly recap those. As again, recognition for work and success, tasks that are challenging, with autonomy, exchange with superiors, timely feedback, work environment with reasonable conditions, resources, and advancement development opportunities.
Precisely. The article even quotes Joachim Bauer, basically saying, value people, give them challenging tasks where they can succeed, and then give them recognition for that success.
Simple but powerful.
Yeah. And conversely, it lists leadership mistakes to avoid. Things like avoiding conflict, not giving feedback, delegating badly, putting off decisions, not assigning clear responsibility.
All things that can really undermine morale and effectiveness.
Definitely. And then there's this really interesting, maybe slightly controversial point about where leaders should focus their time.
Oh, yeah. What's the suggestion?
It advocates spending something like 80% of leadership time with the most engaged colleagues, the A and maybe high B teachers, and basing decisions on their perspectives. This comes from Todd Whitaker again.
80%. Wow. Why such a high number?
The logic is basically, if your best, most effective teachers don't think an idea or initiative is good, then it probably isn't.
Huh. That's a strong stance. But I mean, isn't there a risk there? What about the teachers who are struggling? If you spend 80% of your time with the top performers, are you neglecting the ones who need the most help?
That's a really fair question. And it's not about completely ignoring those who are struggling. It's more about strategic resource allocation.
Okay. How so?
Well, the engaged teachers, your A types, they're often the innovators, the early adopters. If you work closely with them, you can develop and pilot things that work well.
Right. Test things out.
Then, once you have successful models or strategies, you can roll them out more broadly, using that success to build capacity across the school. So it's not abandonment. It's more like leveraging your strengths first to lift everyone.
Okay, I see the logic. Sort of lead with the leaders.
Kind of. And the copy freedom example in the article illustrates this really well.
Ah, the photocopying thing, yeah.
Right. If a few people misuse the copier, a blanket restriction might seem fair, but it could seriously hamper your most creative teachers who rely on making materials.
Yeah, the unintended consequences.
Exactly. So the advice is, talk to those engaged teachers before making sweeping changes. Understand the potential impact on them.
Get their input, their buy-in. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay, so strategy 1 is focus on and involve the engaged. What's next?
Strategy 2 is about actively protecting those engaged teachers.
Protecting them. From what?
Well, partly from potential resentment. The article advises getting their input discreetly. Don't, constantly hold them up publicly in a way that makes others feel inadequate or overlooked.
Manage the social dynamics.
Right. And also maybe overlooking minor mistakes they make. High performers are often their own worst critics anyway.
True.
The key is trusting them with the challenging stuff because they can handle it and it keeps them engaged.
Yeah.
But then, this is crucial, consciously relieve them of less important tasks.
Delegate the routine stuff elsewhere.
Exactly. Free them up to do what they do best.
Okay. Protect the engaged. What's strategy 3?
Focus on the why.
The why. Simon Sinek territory.
You got it. It's about being really transparent about the purpose behind leadership actions.
Yeah.
Ideally, co-creating that why with the staff.
So everyone understands the mission.
Especially in schools, nonprofits, where that shared purpose is such a powerful motivator. It's critical.
Absolutely. Okay, what's next?
Utilizing the existing scope for action.
Scope for action.
Meaning leaders should filter all the demands coming at them and really focus on what matters most, what actually makes a difference. Peter Hugelmeyer is quoted saying something like, "You don't have to pick up every ball that's lying around."
Huh. Good advice for anyone, probably.
Probably. But the point here is that leaders often have more autonomy, more room to maneuver than they think.
They feel constrained, but maybe aren't as much as they perceive.
That's the idea. And there's even this really striking quote from a former German interior minister, Thomas de Maizière.
Oh, yeah.
He suggested that sometimes school leaders might need to act, and this is a direct quote, essentially, illegally, according to the criteria of usability, to do what's actually good for the school.
Wow. That's provocative. Acting illegally.
Yeah, it highlights the tension, right, between bureaucratic rules and doing what's practically necessary and effective on the ground. It suggests needing to push boundaries sometimes.
A bold statement about navigating systemic constraints. Okay. Moving on, what about leveraging group dynamics? The Rotor Salon.
Ah, yes, the Red Salon. This is a really cool project from Micah Palesh, who won an award for it.
So what is it?
It's basically a space deliberately informal, non-hierarchical, where teachers, students, parents can all come together.
To do what?
To collaborate, to rethink things, brainstorm ideas, develop new initiatives, solve problems together.
It sounds very collaborative.
It is. And the big benefit is that because you get broad participation, the solutions that come out of it tend to be more sustainable, more widely supported. People feel ownership.
That makes sense.
And interestingly, the article notes that C teachers, they tend not to volunteer for things like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which means the perspectives of the more engaged people, the A and B teachers, the involved students and parents, naturally carry more weight in the discussions and decisions that follow.
So it kind of self-selects for engagement?
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
The invitation is open, but the most invested people tend to show up.
Interesting dynamic. Okay. What else?
Emphasizing support and coaching over just giving instructions.
More guiding, less telling.
Exactly. Building relationships, providing ongoing support, constructive guidance, thinking of the school and the staff as a professional learning community.
A learning community. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it means creating time for teachers to actually collaborate, maybe observe each other's classes, give feedback, engage in shared professional development, learning together.
Building that collective capacity.
Right. And there's another crucial point. Self-care for the leaders themselves.
Ah, the leaders need support too.
Absolutely. The article uses this great analogy. If the school principal sneezes, the whole school catches a cold.
Very true. The leader's mood sets the tone.
Totally. So leaders need to take breaks, reflect, work on their own skills, self-management, leadership, and ideally have someone objective, a mirror, whether it's a coach or a trusted peer, for feedback.
Can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, the article does touch on the bigger picture, advocating for better working conditions system-wide.
To systemic issues.
Yeah. It acknowledges that conditions in schools are often, frankly, questionable. We need change, more staff, more freedom, multi-professional teams, more time, more trust.
The big structural stuff.
Right. And it encourages collective action unions, associations, talking to politicians, education activists. But it also balances that by saying, while you push for systemic change, also focus on what you can do now within the existing scope for action.
Work within the system while trying to change the system.
Kind of, yeah. A pragmatic approach.
Okay. And there's that brief mention of the Lernreise Innovativen Schulen, the learning journey.
Right, just a quick mention. A project where a group visits innovative schools to see what makes them tick, asking what makes a good school.
And it got recognized for its commitment to quality. Any quick takeaways from what those innovative schools might be doing?
The article itself doesn't detail their findings, but often these kinds of journeys highlight things like distributed leadership, not just top-down, strong collaborative cultures, like we just discussed, and a real focus on student well-being alongside academics.
Seeing different models in action.
Exactly. It can be really inspiring, broaden perspectives about what's possible.
Definitely. Okay, so bringing this all together, this deep dive has really highlighted some key things, hasn't it?
I think so.
Understanding teacher well-being through that Potsdam model, the SABG types, recognizing different engagement levels with the ABC idea, and just how critical proactive, supportive leadership is.
Yeah, and these aren't just abstract theories, are they? They offer really practical insights for you listening right now.
Right.
Whether you're a school leader thinking, okay, how do I really support my most engaged staff? or maybe you're a teacher reflecting on your own well-being, your own patterns.
Or even if you're just interested in how organizations work, how people tick within them.
Exactly. Understanding these models, these strategies, it just gives you a valuable lens, a way to think about fostering healthier, more productive environments.
Absolutely. Which I suppose leads us to a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
Given everything we've talked about, the high demands, the complex reality of education systems, those sobering statistics, how can we collectively make sure that the incredible passion and dedication educators bring isn't just recognized, but actually sustainably supported?
Hmm.
How do we get more schools, more teachers into that thriving, healthy G category? What's the role of the individual in that? And what are the big systemic changes we most urgently need to shift those numbers?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? A vital one to keep thinking about long after we finish here.